People starting to come on in. This will be recorded, of course. It always is. Just for anybody who is wondering. Like I say, markets are kind of flat. What I was talking about was the wild swings in gold. That call, I will kid you not, for probably the last 45 days, maybe even longer, our fund managers were calling. So quite literally right on the money with that. And that drop that you saw in gold may be a once in every cycle drop, by the way. So very interesting. But in general speaking, crypto markets are fairly flat. I mean, there's some altcoins up, Bitcoin's, down. So it's kind of flat just overall speaking, but markets are moving up. And I think everybody's very happy about that. Typically, it's kind of interesting now that the markets are moving up. I'm starting to see people post their favorite coins again on Twitter. It's so interesting when you look at these bull and bear cycles, even if they're mini or cycles that are played out in longer length, you start to see common things come up over and over again. And these trends are, in a bear market, not a lot of people talking about crypto, or they're mad, they're angry. You see FTX, you see UST, all of that kind of stuff happening. And then all of a sudden, when the markets are moving up, everybody's talking about, courses and their favorite coins and price predictions. It's just so interesting to see. I will just say, though, kind of, go back to the last cycle and remember what it was like at the top. Just keep that in mind for when that happens again. You'll never time the top, but look at the overall sentiments that you see and kind of trends that you see of how people are behaving. Use that as your, not financial advice, but use that as your kind of flag for when to get out and when to get back in again. Because that's actually very, very more, I would say, accurate than trying to look at charts. It's just actually human behavior, which is actually all, price action is and charting, generally speaking anyway. But kind of what we're going to do is, as you know, we started a new Zone Weekly, which is like a weekly update. Last week was our first one. We kind of established the foundational numbers, lifetime project numbers. And today was our second one, where we are now going to go like a weekly kind of update. So just for those of you who may have missed that, I wanted to just cover that really briefly. And then I'll take some written questions that were in the AMA questions channel. And then we will take a few, if we can, live questions. I know we always say that, but we actually will try to take some live questions this time. So be sure to raise your hand now so that you're in the queue for that. We can only take a few of them. So it'll be whoever, we can get to. And then the team will share a little bit of some things you guys are wondering about, some projects that are being worked on. Questions you're wondering, even if they're not being asked, they're just kind of questions that have been previously asked, in the short term. But just going over the weekly stats. So we had just under 600 new zones this week. That's just under a 4% increase from last week. We had a lifetime performance of the HFT just under 76%. Now that is for those of you who hold zones. That's not the XETA Capital Fund. That is those of you who hold zones and are participating with that financial service. It's a 76% since launching, and it's 7% just in the last week. We've reduced the circulating supply by 11%. Now that's actually 11.5%, I should say, from 6,600 down to 5,800. That's because we have utility. When you're in a project that doesn't have utility, reducing the circulating supply is you have to burn tokens. And I understand burning has its place. I've always felt that burning is a little bit sort of a gimmick in crypto in general. Sending it to a wallet that can't be accessed. I get the reason for it. There's marketing reasons people do it mostly, if I may say. But I feel like if you have to burn, you may have messed up your tokenomics potentially, or unless it was a planned sort of event. We have $200,000 in OTC just in this week. I think when we started out, we were around $5,000 to $10,000 a day. Then we kind of moved our way up to 15 to 20. Now we're hovering around 28 to 30,000 a day. I suspect that volume will continue to increase. Some people before the OTC came out were kind of wondering what's the point of this, right? I mean, I could just go to a DEX, but I think a lot of you are starting to see the point of OTC. It's a peer-to-peer transfer between two people. The smart contract just facilitates it. and it reduces volatility. As we know, if you buy or sell in the DEX, especially in large quantities, you have a lot of volatility. This reduces that. And there has been times in the past where the OTC has gotten a little clogged up. That's actually not happened in some time. And any time you start to see listings pop up in mass, they are getting cleared out actually very quickly. We have a update that's coming very shortly for the OTC. The guys over at Thorify are awesome, and we've given them a lot of your feedback, and we've provided some feedback, as a team as well. So we have an update that's going to allow the oldest listings to be purchased first. So that way there's never an instance where somebody's literally trying to sell one token and there's all these listings for 50, for example, and the guy with one token is just getting missed out. There will be an update where you will have to purchase that one guy's token before you can move on, or the person, after him or whatever. It'll be like a sequential order based on date. So that should be coming fairly quickly. It just makes the OTC even that much more efficient. But we have just under $900,000 in total volume on the OTC, 31% just in the last week. So keep that in mind. If you haven't used the OTC, dip your toe in, see how it works, and go from there. I think you'll be very surprised just if you kind of test the waters a little bit. No pun intended with all of our water analogies, right? So I'm going to grab just a couple of questions from the AMA questions channel. And, anybody on the team can answer these. I'll throw it out there. And if somebody wants to answer it, just interrupt me. Otherwise, I will just answer it myself. Stephen is asking if anything is in the works for us to be able to roll over our tokens into the pools without having to claim. Similarly to the lake. Not at the moment. But it's something that we've looked into and something that we're talking about, but there's no definitive plans at the moment. I actually think that's what makes the lake unique. So I think it's important that when you release products, features, upgrades, improvements, things like this, that there's pros and cons to each one, right? Because if they're too similar, the line starts to become a little bit more gray in what's the benefit of one versus another. I think not having to claim and not having to pay any claim fees in the lake is a huge benefit. It makes it different than the pools, right? The pools are great. The pools are awesome. You get to maintain control, I should say, over your original amount that you put in. You have more control over whether you want to compound, when you want to take out, how much, etc. As you know, you have to claim your rewards or buy tokens to put into the pools. Lakes, no claim fees. And I think that's huge. I still am going to be working on my video. I have it outlined, by the way, for all the different strategies, because we have so much utility now that it's kind of what journey do I want to take in this model in XETA? We'll have that soon. Just I can't give you guys a roadmap of what to do, but I will kind of lay out different paths you can take and let you make that decision on your own. And somebody's asking, are the pools a sunk cost? No, just the lakes. And by the way, for those you don't know, a sunk cost, all it means is you have I'm going to use the word principal, even though it's not really maybe the correct word, but you have a principal that you put in. You either have control over that or you don't. In that, if you think about a zone, right? You buy a zone, you give your tokens in exchange for the zone. You've lost control over those original tokens. You now have the ROI. That means there's a sunk cost versus the pools where you can withdraw your principal. That's not a sunk cost, just so you know. Some folks are asking, I know about marketing and things like that. We would like to wait until XETA Black is out to really push the marketing hard. I've been doing some things on the back end with marketing. We already have some companies that we're looking at. We've got some really big stuff with marketing that I don't even want to talk about. I don't even want to mention names of anything. But it's literally ready to just pull the trigger on. And I think it'd be really cool to have a full product line out, or at least somewhat of a product line to push mass marketing. If you're talking mass marketing, which is what this question is, it's a different sort of thing. You want to make sure that when you are putting marketing out, that those dollars are kind of any of you have watched Shark Tank. Kevin O'Leary has this funny analogy that his money is sort of like soldiers, and they go out and he wants them to go to battle and bring back more prisoners of war. Kind of funny analogy, but I'm going to use that in terms of marketing. You want your marketing dollars to go out and capture, funds to bring into the project that's going to be profitable. having a product line that's complete and finished and polished, I think, is important in that move as well. The lake should be opening in another couple of days at most. The second lake. So as you know, the first lake, over 7,700 tokens were deposited, and just before it closed, a few hours before it closed, the 500,000 was eaten up and completely filled. So I think we kind of came up with a different strategy midway through the month of January about how to open up pools, and I think that maybe slowed down the lake a little bit. But now I feel like with the new pool schedule, we have pools open pretty frequently now. Even if they're not in the tier you want, they're there because there's some pools that are just not filling up as quickly. Then you're going to have the lake, and there's pros and cons to each one. So now I feel like the options are growing and the variety of options are growing. And that's really, I think, the key to utilities, to continue to improve on it and continue to just get better and to continue giving more options. Because we've actually had some people saying, I don't know what to do. And I actually think that's kind of a good thing, because that means you have too many options of what to do. In other projects, you either compound or you sell, and that's it. And here, you got a whole, I'll say, buffet of options, right? One last question I'll take is somebody asking, can we use zones to move over to XETA Black? The answer is no. They are completely two separate products. Two separate offerings, two separate products in the catalog. So no, the answer is no. Interestingly enough, with XETA Black, I think I would like to turn it over to, how about Gavin, the Homelander, and ask him. Some people have been asked a lot of questions about Black. I've been kind of vague on it purposely. I don't like sharing a whole lot of details from past mistakes, by the way. On something before they're finalized and before it's ready. You want to share a little bit about XETA Black? Like, what's the reason for it? Why are we doing it? What's it for? Just kind of, give us the audience just a little bit of a rundown on it.
Certainly. Well, it's been quite a journey. We actually started working on what is now called XETA Black, I think all the way back in November. For those of you who have been members of XETA for a while now, you know that our community is very intimate. The majority of us talk on a daily basis, and our community is very helpful at not only letting us know what's working in the system, but what's not working in the system. I feel like the team has been very responsive in responding to feedback with tangible, actionable items. So I'm just going to talk about how Showtime mentioned earlier, right? You mentioned how the tokenomics, people use this term, and I've mentioned it before, but when you use this term tokenomics, it's not that it can't be edited as you go, but ultimately, if you've ever taken an economy course, if you view your tokens the exact same as you do a US dollar, then a tokenomics should simply be a basic 40,000 foot architectural outline of the velocity of your tokens. When a user does this, how long will a token stay at point A, B, or C? And if it does this, what will the impact on that coin be? And so what we do is we put, in the corporate world, we would say we put controls, systemic controls on the tokens, basically the options that you have to use your tokens. And this is supposed to curtail certain actions and reward other actions. Just like in regular economics, where you would do the same thing with taxes, right? You would want people to leverage certain things into their business in order to not have to pay a central repository. Yada, yada. It's the same theory. Well, the idea was when we started XETA, we had to have a real world utility paired with the NAS model. You might notice we talk about NAS, the nodes as a service epidemic and sort of zeitgeist that took over the DeFi world the last year and a half. Well, we took that aggregation model for funds. However, you'll notice we don't have any RCP endpoints and we don't have any nodes. Well, that's because a node at the end of the day gives you a 9 to 12% APY. So how can I promise somebody 1% a day? How could we promise somebody 1% a day when we're only intaking or ingesting 9 to 12%? So what we had to do is we had to find a way to fill that delta. So we had to find a way to fix that variable with something that could produce the right results. And we found the answer in a niche portion of financial trading called high frequency trading. So fortunately, we were able to broker that deal, and that's where XETA, what we now call XETA Blue, was born. Well, what happened is some people got so excited about the real world utility and the tangible benefits of it that they didn't realize that when we bridged DeFi and TradFi, it was just that. You are coming from DeFi to TradFi. So some folks thought it was maybe a TradFi to TradFi wire, DeFi, and that wasn't the case. So what happened is before we had all of our utility fully out, we had Blue Chip out, which the adoption was a little bit slower than we had anticipated. But prior to the HFT being released, we were taking the majority of our ingested funds and revenues and using it in the form of buybacks. Like Showtime said, you have to have an option with your coin. And I think now, fortunately, everybody has a lot of options. But once upon a time in this project, there were very few options. It was sell or build, right? Well, we felt it was morally implicit that if we only gave you two options and we told you that we were going to defend a certain coin price, which is the purpose of a tokenomics purchase is to protect the value of a currency so that its spending power is stronger. So we took our profits and we used it to defend a coin price. Well, as soon as we had utility open and the true philosophy behind the tokenomics was unveiled, there was a lot of hurt feelings because there was a lot of folks who didn't realize that the utility was the value of the token, and it was a utility token. And so on one hand, there was a group of people, and it was a large enough group that felt mishandled that we got together as a team and said, okay, well, frankly, this is the best thing in DeFi that has ever worked. However, there was a set expectation of people who got in here looking at the end results and maybe just didn't or had a different understanding of how they were going to get there. We don't ever want somebody to feel mishandled. I'll tell you that right now. Most people, and well, I won't even say most people, there's a type of person who would say, well, you misunderstood. That sucks. This is good enough. We're just not those people, unfortunately. Unfortunately for our developers, we are not those people. So what we did as a team was we got together and we said, okay, the reason why we did it this way is because the way that we knew at the time to make this real world utility accessible, feasible, and available to people was in version 1. Working with Mr. Mark Johnson, our compliance officer, we found a new partnership with a brokerage that would allow us to trade our crypto directly. Once we were able to do that, we were able to float what people will hear is called a tokenless model. That's not true. It's not tokenless. It's just completely stablecoin driven. So the idea behind XETA Black and the origin of it was simply we have a subset of users who felt mishandled because of the ups and downs of a token. And so what we decided was, well, we're never going to do anything to take value away from our project, but what if we created a separate project that was disassociated so there are none of the elements of a token. So there's no advantages. There's no buying OM, appreciating the token, and then getting an extra 2 points for every dollar you invest, right? With our token, we have some of our members who have realized that with the gamification, there are ways for you to invest more than you spent. Case in point, if you buy over the market, if you buy an amount of tokens, you might have spent 100,000, but because of the appreciating cost of the token when you bought them, because of the buy, all of a sudden, if you take that directly and put it into a pool, you're investing almost, depending on the amount, we've had people investing 10%, 15% more than what they purchased. So anyway, the idea was some people don't like that. Some people don't like the gamification. Some people are excited by it. So our intention with XETA Black was something a little bit simpler, something that was simple stablecoin, something that looked a lot more TradFi to TradFi via DeFi. And so with that, that is all I am willing to share for right now. And I will, we'll take a few questions afterwards. But the idea is that it's a pure stablecoin play. It's leveraging a different sort of trading partnership. We have a custodian of our funds that will be announced closer to XETA Black. And the idea, and I will leave this so nobody asks, is that XETA Black is not better than XETA Blue. It's not an evolution. It's not an adaptation. It is a different approach for people who who wanted a different experience. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all you're going to say about that. He's dropping the microphone on XETA Black. No, the idea is that without sharing nitty gritty details, it's more of what's the idea behind it and why. Just so you know, and you guys will see this, by the way, when the some of you don't notice, I had said this yesterday. It was in Prime that I am working with the moderators as well as JT to build out a knowledge base. In that knowledge base, you'll get an idea when you read some of the responses to questions that the idea of what we're trying to build is not just another DeFi project, right? There's a lot of DeFi projects out there. Of course, we're the only one with utility, However, if you're satisfied with that, I would say the team's not. The team wants to do a whole lot more than just that. I think the idea here is to have a product line, a catalog of products, the current model being a product in that catalog. It does not mean that with the next product, the one previous is bad or outdated or old, or it's older, but or there's something wrong with it or being abandoned. No, it's different taste. It's like you're drinking a Pepsi and a guy walks in the room with Coke, and another guy walks in the room with Sprite, right? Somebody else walks in with root beer. They're just different. One's not better than the other. They're just a different taste, a different experience. And with all of the line of products that we plan to release, Black being one, the current model being one, there's like literally, I think 3 or 4 other ones we're discussing. They're different. They're different ways to get to a specific end goal. And I think when you can take something you have and you can put a twist on it, making it better or not even better, but just different in maybe the entry point or maybe the experience. I don't know if you've ever tried to explain the current model to people. If they're not of the gamification mindset, if they're not in DeFi, it may be challenging for them to understand. We took a model that had previously not worked because there was no utility. We attached the utility and we made it work, but still trying to explain it to maybe somebody who's not even in crypto, that's going to be a challenge. I do this with family and, like my in-laws who are not in crypto. It's hard to explain. I do my best, but then they kind of forget certain points and they ask questions. I'm like, no. So anyway, Black may be a way to solve that problem. A product may be more suited for a different audience, doesn't make the previous product worse or anything like that.
And I can assure every current XETA member that the way that they've been value propositioned, there would be no reason to get out of your current XETA Blue position and move over to a XETA Black position monetarily. Literally, the only benefit that you would have going from one to the other is personal taste.
Exactly. And again, like you're going to look at these products side by side. And based on your goals, based on who you are, based on what you're trying to do, you're going to say, you know what, this one's better. Does that make it better? No, it just makes it maybe better for you, right? And I think if you can serve different audiences in different ways and help them reach their end goals and everybody wins, that's the ultimate goal. I think a lot of DeFi projects, and I think some of them are starting to evolve, but previously a lot of DeFi projects, it's like they come out with a project, that's it. And I'm thinking like, I think bigger than just, a project, even if it works out, which really very few have. But even if it works out, you got to think bigger. I think we are so early in blockchain and distributed ledger tech without just looking at token prices. I'm talking adoption. I'm talking, large adoption with governments and corporations and different industries. We're still so early. And I think what we've seen is unfortunately cash grabs with maybe originally having good intentions, but maybe that changing, whatever the case may be. We haven't seen the true utility, the true projects that do something, right? Until now, of course. So anyway, the idea is to continue evolving and growing bigger and thinking bigger. And I think that should always be the end goal, is to think bigger and build bigger. So anyway. That is that. We, at the moment, do not have any hands up. So,
short times.
Yeah,
sorry. Well, I'm sorry. I was going to say, well, speaking of building bigger, Bradicus, you there?
Yes, mate. I'm here. Sorry.
So, do you have any updates on some of the BTS sort of stuff that you've been working on?
Yes. So, over this weekend, I'm going to push out another update to ensure that updates to pools are more frequent and on time. We had to change the back end, and we've had to change a few things around to add scheduling to the back end. But from Monday, Tuesday onwards, you should start to see the daily updates to your HFT performance. It should be a lot more accurate and frequent now.
Excellent.
Regarding black, and by the way, black doesn't suffer with the same problem as blue, because when we started designing black, obviously we took the problems of blue, architecturally wise, and yeah, black won't suffer from the same issues that blue does in terms of the updates, schedules.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Now that Brad's up, I forgot. I'm sorry, I was talking so much, I forgot who was up here with me. I want to ask Brad a question.
He's a prima donna.
I forgot. We got the two Americans and the two Englishmen. So I'm gonna ask a question to Brad and Mark. We haven't forgotten about it. We'll get to you in a second, Mark. I promise.
Good.
So
yeah.
You can explain this better than me, Brad. I'm going to ask you to answer a question that I'm getting probably every day. And this, by the way, guys, the knowledge base that I'm building with the mods and JT should be out any day. I want to read it over and polish it up. It'll be a central repository for all questions and answers. That's why the FAQ on the Discord's gone, because we don't need it anymore. The knowledge base is going to be something that even if you're not in Discord, you can go access. It's going to be a single link. It's going to be categorized. You're going to be able to find questions on almost any topic. You're going to be able to search. It's tagged, the whole 9 yards. So what I'm going to ask Brad is in there. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask Brad to explain the compounding. Some people are saying, they're either running the math and they're saying, the numbers are different, or they're wondering if it's compounding, how it is. And I've explained it, but I think you can probably explain a whole lot better.
Okay, so one of the big problems with Blue at the moment is the DApp. The calculations that we run to display the percentages is way off. Okay, it's not at the moment factoring in withdrawals. And every 28-day cycle, so at XETA we have 28-day cycles, okay? We consider that a month, which again is why you have 13 sets of fees and not 12. The mathematic in the DApp is wrong, okay? And it's quite difficult and complex to get right, to factor in all the different percentages of the pools, the withdrawals, and the 20 actual trading days per 28 days. But the compounding, this is basically how the compounding works. So on day one of a pool initiating, it will obviously go in with your principal because there is no current balance. But yeah, it will go in with your principal. Day two and onwards, it will literally take your principal plus your current balance and then move that and trade with that on that day. And then what it will do is it will take that figure, it will deduct your principal. This is how it works. In the programming is takes your principal, whatever's left over is now your new balance, and it is that simple. It's just principal plus your current balance, which is moved to the next day. So the compounding is actually daily. That's how it's done, and it does work. I sit here and every day and I check every single pool, one by one, every single day, just to make sure that the system is working. But no, compounding does work, and it's purely a DApp issue, display issue, which we are going to fix, but after black. We can't divert the resources at the moment to fix Blue, but as I've said before in the Prime channels, when black is done, we're going to take a few days downtime, and we're going to just go to the community and say, look, what do you want to see? In a couple of weeks after Black's launch, we will concentrate our efforts on bringing what I would call quality of life updates. Now, a quality of life update is just an update that doesn't change how something works fundamentally, right? But what it does is it just tidies up the DApp. It gives a few little bits of information to you lot to better understand what's happening with your funds and the balances. So, for an example, a very minor thing, but it's something that really annoys me personally, right, is you go and do a claim, okay, and you press the claim all button. Now, for the next 24 hours, you just see a grey button. So one of the updates that we're going to do is it will just count down to when you can actually next claim. So you haven't got to check the blockchain or your wallet and see, when you actually initiated that last claim. So there'll just be a lot of small updates that will make your user experience a lot better. And that will come, within a couple of weeks after Black.
Thank you, Brad. I knew you could explain that compounding part better than me. It's more or less a UI update that's going to come, but it is compounding. And hopefully when the knowledge base is out, if the question comes up, it can just be pointed to that one location. And it's interesting with development because you have to allocate resources to certain things at a time, right? Because you're limited. One of the things that we're limited on is people. Every business is limited on people unless you just continue growing more people.
Yeah, I mean, a small example of the only time that we will switch up the resources is obviously when the lake appeared on the dashboards. For some reason, we didn't give you the balance of what was in the lake for yourself. So that was a top priority to fix, and I believe
it is working.
You can actually now see your balance. Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brad, and all the developers who are probably not on here because of the time zone differences. But thanks for working on all this stuff. It's it's a lot of moving pieces. I mean, when you're talking about something that hasn't been built yet, it's not as if you can just go and copy pasta, as they say, right? Just go to GitHub and find what someone else has done and just go and copy it. You actually have to build this stuff from the ground up, and building stuff from the ground up is a challenge when it's never been built. You have to make it up. You have to be the one to code it. You've got to be the one to test it. You have to be the one to break it. And that's a big job for something that's never been built. So, that's one of the reasons that you might find, well, this stuff takes a long time. Well, it's because none of this stuff has ever been built before. When you have, back in node season, people are calling it node season now. You had unicorn nodes and this node and that node, whatever node, right? They were just all copy paste, source code. So it's pretty easy to just go and throw that stuff up. But to actually be unique and innovative, that takes time, especially when you're bridging, traditional finance into the picture. It's a big deal. So thanks again for everything you do. I know the community as well as myself really appreciate it.
And just one more thing, by the way, is I know I say this a lot, especially in Prime. The system that we have, and XETA CMO will be able to confirm, is that the back-end system is massively complex. It's we've not borrowed a single line of source code to build XETA, and it's from UI to the backend to the GAX's backend. There really is a lot of moving parts, even to the our Web3 provider, right? That grabs the blockchain transactions. We've outgrew that provider to the point where we're now having to build our own Web3 backend to cope with the demand. And this is why when we have them 75 plus pools that the DApp just decides to fall over, it's literally because we're processing that many transactions across different systems, is that the system can't cope. So one of the other things that we're working on alongside Black is we're actually building our own backend for the Web3 stuff, the transactions, verifying the transactions from the ground up. And, that's another thing that we're working on.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. CMO, how are you? Got your mic up? CMO, I think you're muted at the moment. All right, well, I'll let you. I see you're unmuted. Can't hear you. At least I can't. Maybe it's just me, but I don't see your name flashing. So while you are getting your mic working, I'm going to thank you again, Brad, for all the updates. I really appreciate it. I want to pass over to Mark. I know Mark's been working on some stuff behind the scenes. And first of all, how you doing, Mark?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well. How are things going with Uncharted?
Yeah, Uncharted's going fantastic. We're at the stage of getting close to proof of concept. What I mean by that is, in respect of the airdrop date is not far away now. So I think things are going to get very exciting once we go through the first airdrop and people can see the proof of concept's been achieved. There's lots and lots of exciting stuff to be released. We're not looking to release too much stuff prior to that because one of the sort of fundamental things from my perspective and Johnny's perspective was to actually get the achievement of the first airdrop done, see the results firsthand, and then we have a wheel of exciting stuff to come moving forward from that point. So yeah, going very well indeed.
Good. Anything else you're working on that you want to talk about?
So yeah, in regards to XETA, as you're aware, wear two hats. So obviously the Uncharted being one and XETA being the other. We are in provisional talks now in regards to XETA going as a public offering, which would be an IPO listing. I've been with the guys that do the IPO process today. Apologies if I sound bunged up. I'm actually full of man flu at the minute, so hopefully it's clear enough. But yeah, I was with them today. Had a nice breakfast meeting with them. They are looking and in talks with the Nasdaq, which would be a junior Nasdaq listing. So very exciting stuff there. I'm not going to give too much sort of information away at this stage because it's a big lift in regards to the workload to be done. But the reason for this and casting sort of minds back to July, and I think that was a previous AMA that I'd done with you guys, is my role was to come into XETA and actually really focus on getting DeFi to traditional finance and combining them both. And for me, I feel that XETA going down this route of actually IPO really will separate this crypto project to the hundreds or thousands of other projects out there that claim that they have real utility, because we've got lots of the evidence that we have real utility, but the real big utility will be when we're on an American stock exchange and we've got a ticker in the real world, not in the sense of the crypto world, which is on a DEX, or even if we went to a central exchange, a real stock ticker, and that shows us at the same level as people like Google, Apple, and all these massive companies that started where we will be inside 12 months. So it's very exciting stuff, and all I can say is that is going to be an absolute massive game changer for everyone that's involved, and anyone that's got involved early will be very pleased. So that was the first thing that I've been working on in quite a bit of detail. The other thing is I'm working on a utility on the payment card side. As you're aware, I've got a background in this with another project. Not going to start dropping names of projects on this AMA, because it's not the right thing to do. That project, though, has had a massive spike in success. Fundamentally, since they listed on a London stock exchange recently, but their actual main utility is payment utility with card services. And one of the big goals that we're also looking to achieve to make us more mainstream and increase the strength of the utility is that people will be able to use some sort of MasterCard facility to pay for stuff with XETA. Again, not going to go too much into detail at this stage because both these jobs are big lifts and they're work in progress, but nevertheless, very exciting stuff.
So I just want to make sure anybody who's listening, you said XETA being an IPO, as in being able to buy shares on the stock market, right?
Correct.
What other DeFi projects have done that? Are you aware of any, Mark? I know you deal in this world a lot. Any other? I mean, crypto is a big piece of the pie. Of course, we're in a smaller piece of the pie, but we're aware of Coinbase is. We're aware of a lot of different projects. Anybody in DeFi that's done anything like this?
No, we would be the first DeFi project to successfully do an initial public offering. So that hasn't been done. And there's a reason for that, by the way. And, you know, XETA, with the developments of things like XETA Black, it will fall under a slightly different remit in the SEC's eyes, which will make the process for us a little bit easier, not a lot easier, but it will mean that we tick the right boxes to be able to be supported by them on the IPO. There are other projects that have attempted it and failed, being sort of blunt about it. I mean, even the project that I was working on before, we're trying to implement a DeFi element. They're actually trying to, believe it or not, implement it with Celsius. So thank God they didn't. You know, for that reason, they never got it across the line earlier. But I've learned through a catalogue of errors that these previous companies that I've been involved with have made. So we had the right formula to be the first DeFi project to, you know, go IPO in America. So I think it's a massive statement. I would like to talk more about it, but there's certain things that I can and can't discuss, and I'm sure you'll understand that, because when you get to this sort of level in the world of business, this isn't. It's a slightly different process, and I wouldn't want to be breaking any sort of rules and regulations that could come back to haunt us later on.
Absolutely, and that's
thank you.
You thank you, Mark. You touched on, you used a word, and it's kind of sad that I even have to focus on this word, but I'm doing it anyway. Business. You said business, and I bring that up.
Foreign words, yeah. Sorry about
that. Well, it's a key word you said, because there's projects and then there's businesses, and they're not the same, right? I mean, you see crypto projects pop up left and right. You saw DeFi projects, like I was mentioning, copying, you know, source code and all sorts of stuff popping up left and right. They're not businesses. Most of them are not businesses. Some are, but the vast majority of them, they're not businesses. They don't operate like a business. They don't have a real team. They don't have a team that has an understanding of crypto and finance and tech and all these, you know, different areas. But you use the word business, and I think that's the key point. The reason that, you know, we can launch on something like this is obviously, you know, with the team, but that goes back to because XETA is a business, right? It's more than a project. And that goes also back to what I was mentioning earlier about a catalog of products. That's a business. You know, I've ran businesses before this, and I would be remiss to run a business and only have one product and then be done. Like, that would never make any sense. Every business should have a line of products, a line of services to service and solve a need for almost anybody, you know, no matter who they are.
And that comes back to, you said about your in-laws, and you said about the complication of DeFi, and I'm probably guessing that you are talking about things like setting up a MetaMask wallet, linking it on AVAX, etc., etc. This is all stuff that there is a generational gap between the world of crypto and, let's say, your in-laws. There's a strong probability, and I'm not generalizing, but, you know, people that are, you know, in that generation will not want to get their head around this new tech. Why would they? Some people don't want to learn new developments of tech. Now, one key thing of going IPO is that you are entering XETA into the area where everyone from the old school with big money can get involved, because they can buy a stock. They've got a broker, and if they want to buy a stock and it lists at $1.50 you know, a share, they can go buy $25,000 worth of shares, and they can still get the uplift and the growth from the company. They don't have to go through the complicated process of learning a procedure and also, or possibly even losing money, because let's be honest as well, some of these people that are vulnerable and don't fully understand the process are very easy to fall victim of scams, and scams are on the rise because of the economic situation. So one of the reasons I like the idea of IPO is it gives everybody a chance to get involved that might be scared of the tech side to get involved. Does that make sense?
100%. And if I might ask a question, Mark, I had mentioned earlier to some of the Prime folks that we were exploring getting listed on maybe like a junior exchange with the FCA, right? Like in the UK. And then when we started working as a team, when you made the contacts that you had, is there a reason why we are going for the Nasdaq instead of maybe just replicating what you've done in the past with other projects?
Yeah, there is. So the Nasdaq is predominantly a tech-based exchange listing in the IPO sector, and with us, fundamentally, XETA is a tech company. You can dress it up that it's a DeFi company, a crypto company, but where it has so many different hats, it does fall under a technology company. Now, with the company that we're using, they have a market making team that will generate a value of pre-IPO money via equity so that we can build the company stronger through the pre-IPO side of the business. So let me give you an example. We may go out there and raise 30 million pre-IPO and give a proportion of discounted shares to the people that come into the pre-IPO purchase, and then those people can make on the listing when we ring the bell on the day of the listing. So, and that's also an exciting point. There'll be an option of somebody ringing that big bad boy bell when it does list.
What do you mean somebody? Mr. Johnson, you're going to be right there. All of our hands are going to be on it, and then we're going to have all of our entire XETA community there as well. So it's just going to be hundreds of Tarians in Wall Street just knocking stuff up.
I've got that vision in my mind, and there's a lot more appetite for investors via the Nasdaq. So fundamentally, they are the reasons why we would be looking at the Nasdaq. The process and the cost and the yearly fees are slightly more expensive to be on that exchange, but I feel when you look at the pros and the cons of but put it this way, you've got to get the, how could I put it in a simple way? You've got to get the divorce sorted on this one before the marriage. Yeah. So it's a
she won't get out,
bad boy. Yeah.
Jesus.
It's a big bad boy to undertake, but this isn't my first rodeo, and this will be my fourth, and everyone's been successful, so I've got no concerns, and I would look to achieve this within a 12-month window, just to give you some sort of idea on timeline as well.
Scholar and a gentleman. Thank you.
Also want to make sure. I want to make sure we didn't skim over this. You mentioned that we're also, but you're doing a lot of heavy lifting. Are also looking into a potential debit card. I know you said that. We didn't really cover that at all.
Yeah. So, one of the main thoughts that for true utility again, and again, I look at XETA. My main goal is to make sure that it has fundamental utility that can be used on a daily basis, whether that's selling a stock or buying a stock or buying a Starbucks with a contactless card. And I'm in talks with several different companies to implement a payment facility where you could have, for instance, the XETA logo on the card. I mean, you could even have a blue, black, and whatever way we decide we want to make it for the community. And I'm sure we'll get feedback from the community on what their thoughts are. That's again work in progress. Not quite as big of a lift as the stock listing, but nevertheless, you can imagine when you're dealing with people like MasterCard, it's not a quick sort of turnaround within weeks. You're talking several months of talks, and all this process. Just to touch on is a lot of DD that has to be done on both of these processes that we're going through. So it's just it shows the credibility of the project, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I was just mentioning, building bigger, thinking bigger. So this is stuff that we didn't just start working on yesterday. This is stuff that's been ongoing for a little bit. So, there's a lot of things we work on that we don't share until it gets a little bit closer to where it makes sense to share. So just kind of bear in mind that you're hearing this stuff, but this is certainly not something that we just decided to do yesterday. There's a lot that is not being shared that, we're building on, thinking on, planning on, stuff like that. So again, that just goes back to the idea of thinking bigger than just another DeFi project, and doing more and wanting to be more as well.
I think a big announcement when we and the 250 million, it could be 500 million, who knows? It could be $1 billion company. So, and that's not an exaggeration. That's a fact. With the growth of this company and how well put together it is, and how good of a team and community that we have, everyone that's listening here could turn around in 18 months' time or a year's time, just over, and say, I was involved in a $1 billion company startup. And that's not me dreaming. I wish you all were fly on the wall when I had this breakfast meeting today, because your jaws would have been on the floor.
Well, Mark, if you don't mind, we try not to talk about numbers, and the reason we don't talk about numbers too much is because until it comes in, you can't pay the bills till the check comes in. Everything's a maybe until it comes in, right? That's the way revenues work.
Oh yeah,
but
100%. When you list a company, just so you know, the requirements are a minimum valuation on IPO of 100 million. So just to give you a floor valuation, in the sector that we're working, that's what the floor valuation would be, yeah?
Correct. And the reason why I wanted to just say that wasn't because I was afraid of you saying $1 billion. I've seen the number, sir. It's for the audience, just so everyone understands. That's not that crazy of a number when you look at the figures of just this company. So like Mr. Johnson mentioned, 100 million minimum. That's a 10x multiple, right? So if you have a company that's worth 10 million, they give you a times 10. Now you're $100 million company. You get listed. That's a very, very, very layman version of how it works. But if you think about that, XETA, we have kept this as our oasis for 8 months. Does anybody think that if there was a marketing campaign, there's a chance that XETA could be 5 or 10 times bigger? I just want to make that point that right now we have 580 wallets. All of you have built this entity, 580 of you. With what we have planned, with the amount of funds that we intend, hope, and are diligently working towards onboarding, when we said, we would love $1 billion valuation, that wasn't just, a flippant statement. We've got enough of those last year. I would hope that it would hit a little different coming from us, but I just want to make that plain that when you do those types of maths, we're not talking about $80 million a month and crazy airdrops. We're talking about real maths, real, and it's not that, it's not that far off of where we almost already are.
What you have to consider as well is the size of the crypto market. Although we all love, live and breathe crypto, right? It's not mass adopted yet. So and I'm sure Showtime will know the stats, being a stats guy, of what the adoption of crypto is in the actual real world. But I don't think it's a massive number. So when you go down the IPO route, you're then opening up the whole market. It's a lot bigger market when you look at the stock market, because don't forget that we'll start on a junior listing, and then we'll work our way up to mid listing to top tier listing. So, and we could do that within easily a 3 to 5 year window, get to the main market.
Mark, what is the benefit for a person who gets in like at a pre-IPO sale? It goes on like a junior or a mid, like it goes on a junior market, What happens to a person who holds on to that, like when it goes to a mid market, and then when it matriculates to a senior market? What does that look like for a person? I've never done it. First time for me.
I would say maybe to the cleaners that work for Microsoft, because that'll be someone else cleaning their Ferrari now. They ain't mopping the floors. So if that gives you some sort of indication of the value increase, it's phenomenal.
Well, the last guy you did it for stopped answering all of our phone calls and disappeared. I think he moved to Mars.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So, in all seriousness, the benefit is obviously the pre-IPO is at a discount, so they would buy the stock at a discounted price, and then they have the option, obviously, if they want to sell on the initial listing, or they can actually sell at any stage. There's not a lock-in period unless they were a founding member that had shares. So there's a period where, if you're a founder of a project, then you have a restriction on the stock to stop you, dumping the stock on list. But if you were just a normal person wanting to purchase discounted stock on the street, and you had the opportunity to buy it, you can sell it on the entry level into the junior Nasdaq, or you can wait until mid-tier, or it's just down to your personal situation. Some people will want to sell. You could sell some at each stage. It's in that respect, it's probably a little bit similar to people that are taking journeys from a DEX with a coin up to it being listed on Binance. Same sort of principle.
Exciting. And I just want everyone to understand that it is difficult because there's so much more to share. This is juicy, but there's a lot more that's going to be happening in between. So we have to save something for later announcements. But Mark, thank you again.
It's a long process. It's not like, we're not going to turn around to everyone and say, we're going on the Nasdaq next month. This is a big lift. It's a big, expensive job to get done, which takes a multiple amount of people. It takes a board being put together. It's a massive, big job. So I'm giving you just the provisional what's happening and watch this space.
I wonder if CMO is available yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. That was a heck of an alpha, and frankly, that would be a way to end it. But wanted to call Jay Good. Gonna invite you up, buddy. You had your hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you, man?
Yes.
Good. How are you guys? So, quick question. So, with all these people in the chat and everything for the pre-IPO, would we be able to buy these pre-IPO shares through the XETA website, or would that be a different company? And then, like any Prime members, would there be extra benefit from buying the pre-sale when it first started, or anything you could expand on?
Yeah, sure. So it would be done for a different company. What it would be a pre-IPO sale is always done through the market makers that actually run what they call the roadshow. I'm not sure if you've bought IPO stock before, possibly you have with that question. So, but there's a slightly different process. So that would be handled by the people that are taking us public, and we would work out what discount would reflect fairly on the amount we're looking to raise and the amount of stock we're looking to offer. And it'll be a simple process though, but it would be done as a similar to crowdfunding, really, that sort of setup, if that makes sense, where there might be $5 million available, and a link would be shared via these market makers and roadshow providers, and there would be a high net worth sophisticated sign off from anyone that wanted to buy, and obviously they'd also have to have access to a stock account as well, in OTC in the world of stock, which is a broker account, so that they could liquidate the shares on listing as well. So it's a bit more of an intrinsic process than what we're used to on a DEX or a central exchange in crypto, but we'd make it very simple and straightforward process. So I hope that sort of answers.
Looks like all things in life worth doing. A little bit of effort.
Yeah, no, that helps. But does like accredited investors, does that play a part in it, or would we have to be that, or not in a pre-IPO?
You would need to be listed as a high net worth or sophisticated investor. So you would have to sign to that effect that you are of that qualification, because anything that's IPO will fall under SEC remit. So you can't just be if you like a mum and pop investor. You have to be a high net worth or sophisticated. Yeah.
So that would probably put a bulk of these people out of it, correct?
Negative. Welcome to Zeta, sir. Welcome to it.
I mean, I don't think the stipulation is in the sense of when you're trying to invest into a regulated fund. This is so I'll give you an example on a project that I've done recently in the UK that was listed in the London Stock Exchange. The criteria was that you earn over 100,000 per year, or you had property with X amount of equity paid off. So it wasn't. We're not talking millions of dollars of net worth to be able to buy an IPO stock. It's the sign off is just there to protect vulnerable people. So to stop someone investing, $10,000 if all they've got is $10,000, or do you know what I mean? It's just there to protect individuals. It's not a massive sign off for the rich and famous at all.
No, thank you. I get it. And any alpha on like maybe the first 500 wallets are getting rewarded, or anything you guys could share?
Don't you get rewards every day, sir?
Yes.
I love the spirit. That's what I'm talking about. Getting rich is not enough. That's the new tagline for Zeta.
Funny.
It's never enough.
Jay Good, does that answer your question, buddy?
Yeah, I'll step down.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
coming up. I would like to
Thanks
get
for
to
your question. Good.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a great question, and there'll be more on this, by the way, as time goes on. I'd love to get to some more hands raised, but I'm trying to keep these at an hour, and we're actually well over an hour at this point. So
Come on.
the two people that have their hands raised, please DM me, and I will answer whatever your questions are directly. If you can't DM me, you got to send me a friend request first here on Discord, and I'll be sure to answer you. I apologize. We're just trying to keep this, tight ship. But I just, want to say thanks again for coming. We will have some more AMAs going on. And I actually like the format of bringing more people up with the team and having them talk about what they're working on. Because, again, that goes back to how an actual business is run. You have teams, you have, although I will say there's a lot of people that do a lot of things. I'm the chief communications officer, but I will tell you communications is not all I'm working on. Same with Brad and Mark and Gavin and CMO. There's a lot of different things that a lot of people work on. But again, it's going back to a business, and it's set up functionally that way on purpose to be able to run it like it is a real business. And, we talked about stats today. We talked about Zeta Black. We talked about, we'll answer some of your questions. Talked about the updates coming with the HFT. Of course, we talked with Mark about the debit card as well as the potential IPO in addition to that. And that just goes back again to thinking big and building big. I know I, for one, do not participate just for participation trophies. I compete to win, and I compete to come in first place. I don't compete to come in second place. And I know I speak not just on behalf of myself, but as well as the rest of the team in addition. So this has been recorded. Give us about a day or so. Tomorrow's Saturday. We should be able to get it up tomorrow. And you will be able to listen to the recording of this. And of course, we'll have a transcript written by one of our moderators as usual. Want to thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time, take care. God bless.